Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass, or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. But the greatest of these is charity. This is Corinthians, the 13th chapter. The reason I started today's video with this is because I'm getting a lot of questions. Florida Maquis, some years ago, you put out a great t-shirt that said devoted and said you didn't want anyone voting for Republicans or Democrats. Well, at that time, there was very little difference. But there is a difference between Republican, Democrat, and conservative versus liberal, progressive. And one of these groups has totally decided now to embrace evil and reject all teachings of the Bible. And that, of course, is the Democrat Progressive Liberal Party. They have gone so far off the rails just in the last year and a half, that to pretend there is no distinction now is just laughable and willingly blind. And this scripture proves it. Because when you think of BLM, or you think of those that are attempting to push cancel culture or trying to change the values of this country, do you see them as not vaunting themselves or puffed up? You see, they say they want justice for this or justice for that or justice for the other. But charity beareth all things and endureth all things. You see, forgiveness and enduring to the end and bearing our cross, that is a hallmark and a tenet of Christian faith. And they're having none of it. They're having none of it. They are seeking justice in this life. There is no justice in this life. There never will be justice in this life. There will never be perfection in this life. Because the scripture says, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. They want their reward here, right now. I've mentioned before about Florida being its own republic. This is one of the reasons why we have the King's peace, and we don't delude ourselves in the ideas of a child, because that is how children think. They think in black and white. They think things should always be right. They're always totally right, always totally wrong. There's an article out today that illustrates this clearly about a young woman who's attempting to run for Charlie Crist's seat in Washington, D.C. I've said before, and I'll say again, there is no hope in Washington, D.C. We're going to make it here in Florida. What the rest of you do is up to you. But if you come here, the king's peace will not be disturbed. And no, Governor DeSantis is not the king. The king is in heaven. And his peace in Florida will not be disturbed. Now, what exactly am I talking about as far as this specific example? There's a woman in Orlando, Florida civil rights attorney and legislator Michelle Rayner, to run for Crist's seat. She says something here that is very telling. Tampa, 14 June 2021. State Rep Michelle Rayner, now she's already a state rep, by the way, who became the first openly black LGBTQ woman to get elected to the Florida legislature last year, is jumping into the race for the congressional seat now held by Rep. Charlie Crist. Rayner, Democrat, St. Petersburg, will formally announce her candidacy on Monday, throwing herself into a potentially crowded contest for a seat that may be targeted by changes by the Republican-controlled Florida legislature. Her decision to run places an up-and-coming progressive candidate into what will be a highly competitive primary. Rayner said in an interview that she is running for Congress as part of an effort to hold on to a Democratic-held seat and to put herself in a place where she can best serve her community. Quote, and this is her speaking, "Public service has been at the center of every decision I make. What we know about Tallahassee is that it's very broken, and it's been broken for a long time. My whole life has been about my public service. It comes down to where I can do the most good." Now, wait a minute. She says Tallahassee is broken, yet she got elected to a seat there. How do those two things make sense in any world? See, Tallahassee is controlled by the people of the state of Florida. What she doesn't like is the makeup. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize. I've mentioned before that conservatives are in control of Florida. I haven't gone into detail. In the state Senate, where we have 40 senators, we control 24 seats. They only control 16, meaning that if this were taken out to the same numbers that the nation has, we have 60-40 control. We have a supermajority in our Senate. In the House, it's even worse. We have 78-42 control, and it was 71-46 prior to 2020. This is why Florida has Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis didn't create this. Governor DeSantis is the result of this. We have just shy of a 2-1 majority in our state house. And every single member of the Florida Supreme Court is a member of the Federalist Society. They're all conservatives. There used to be, many years ago, room for conservative thought and value in the Democrat Party. That is long gone. That is completely long gone. And there were, and still are in some places, liberals in the Republican Party. We know who they are. They're rhinos. So this is my explanation for this. There is one party that still has a hold on Christian value, and specifically here in the state of Florida. I make no representation for any parentheses R in D.C. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is no hope in Washington, D.C. I don't care who the president is. The last one, the one before that, the one before that. My statement still stands about D.C. When it comes to what they call, quote unquote, national elections. We don't really have national elections. We have 50 state elections. That they're irrelevant. And D and R, in this case, in the case of Washington, D.C., are almost indistinguishable. But in Florida, they are very distinguishable because here they are true conservatives, Bible-believing, unapologetic conservatives. Now, the final picture I'll bring up is also from Ballotpedia, and this is a breakdown of salaries. State legislatures in California make $110,000 a year. $71,000 a year in Michigan. $110,000 in New York. $66,000 in Massachusetts. $88,000 in Pennsylvania. $65,000 in Illinois. All liberal states. You know how much they make in Florida? $29,000. $29,000 a year. And why is that important? Because it takes us back to where we started. It takes us back to the original scripture. Because to be a servant, you have to have a heart after charity. You have to understand the concept of charity. In a lot of other translations in the Bible, this word charity is substituted for love. Well, there's many different versions in the Greek for love. This particular version is the one that focuses on the giving nature of love, the lack of self, the sacrificing of self nature of love. But it says specifically, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. It does not behave unseemly. It seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked. Does that sound like BLM, not easily provoked? Does that sound like the Democrats? Thinketh no evil. Does that sound like liberal progressives? You see, gratitude and thankfulness is a conservative value. It is antithetical to progressivism and liberalism. They have no room in their hearts for thankfulness, because literally to be a progressive, you literally are advocating for a continual state of change. Nothing is ever good enough. There's always something to complain about. There's always something that needs to be changed. It is the antithesis of charity. Because it's always about you. How was I slighted? How was my group not being treated fair? How can I find justice for this poor, put upon minority over here, blah, 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 blah. It's the opposite of what's being spoken about in Corinthians 13. If any Democrat, any liberal out there says that they can be a Christian, read them this scripture and ask them how that works. Ask them if their social justice beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, and endureth all things. It's the opposite of it. It is the antichrist of it. And there are many other scriptures you can bring out too, but this is a really good one. So, anyway, I will leave it there. God bless everyone. I hope you guys have a great week. Florida is a very blessed place, and it's not top down. Governor DeSantis is the result of a well-tended, biblical, conservative garden. He didn't create it. He's the result of it. We are blessed to have him. But if you want it in your state, it starts at the ground up. It starts with tearing up the soil, just like any garden, getting rid of the rocks, rooting out all the things that don't make for a good garden, planting good seed and being a good steward, and then eventually something like a Governor DeSantis will manifest in your state. God bless, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.